Hello and welcome to my channel, Knotty Gnome Crafts. My name is Sarah and you can find me as Knotty Gnome on Instagram. My channel is all about sewing, so if that interests you, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload new videos. So it's Friday, which means it's time for another Friday Sews. If you're not aware of the Friday Sews hashtag, it's a community hashtag that was started by Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room, where we just get to chat a little bit informally about our sewing and other things that are going on in our life throughout the week. So this week I have so many makes to share with you. I actually finished 5 garments, which seems crazy, but they were all knits, and so whenever I set up my machines and get to sewing knits, I tend to do a batch of them pretty quickly because I can sew up a regular t-shirt in a couple of hours or so, and that's why I made so many things. So let's just get to it. The first thing that I made, if you watched my previous Friday Sews video, which I will link up above, I was talking about making some things for my niece. So I was able to make her this cold shoulder top from Ellie & Mac. I believe it's called the cold shoulder tunic for kids, and it's out of this really adorable unicorn fabric that she picked out herself from fabric.com. It's a cotton spandex jersey, and I made the size 12 with the length of the 14 because my niece is quite tall. So this pattern went together pretty smoothly. I tend not to follow the instructions on knits because they're so simple, but because I'd never made a cold shoulder top before, I did kind of follow the instructions on this more than I normally would. I will say that there was one issue with the drafting that wasn't quite right, and that is the hem of the top. It kind of comes to a point, and the way that it's drafted, where the front and the backs meet, it actually is like a point, so you obviously can't hem that. So I ended up having to kind of trim it and make it a little bit more curved so that I could go ahead and hem it. That was the only drafting error that I found in the pattern. Otherwise, it went together really smoothly. The most difficult part for me was trying to remember to make the neckband pieces so that they appear right side up. I'm showing you the wrong part. On the front, so they're right side up instead of upside down. That was the only part that I had to kind of think about. But this went together really well. And then after I finished this top, I had purchased 1.5 yards of fabric, and I think it was at least a 60-inch wide fabric. It might have been even wider. It was super, super wide. And I had originally talked about in my last Friday Sews video of perhaps making her a matching skirt, but I just had so much fabric left that I went ahead and made the Be Confident tunic dress, which is also an Ellie & Mac pattern. And it's just a little tank dress that has a circle skirt with a high-low hem. So for this one, I made the same size. I made the 12 with the 14-inch or the 14 size length. But for this pattern, I didn't follow the directions at all. Mostly because I wanted to add some extra reinforcement. So I put twill tape in the shoulder seams because this skirt is a lot of fabric and it's very heavy, so it's going to get pulled down when it's worn. So I wanted to make sure to reinforce the shoulder seams. And for the skirt portion, I went ahead and sewed clear elastic to the skirt before I attached it to the bodice. You're probably not going to be able to see this, but there is like clear elastic sewn into the skirt portion because that will help hold the weight of the skirt, like pulling it down so the bodice doesn't get stretched out. So with those additions, I think it turned out really well. I ended up doing a rolled hem on my serger instead of cover stitching because it just would have taken forever to cover stitch a hem that was this wide because of the circle skirt. And I think that it looks really cute. It hangs nicely. So these 2 garments are all ready to send off to my niece. I'm thinking I'm going to get them in the mail early next week. And I can't wait to see what she thinks of them. I hope she likes them. So the next garment that I completed was the Friday Pattern Company's square neck top. And I did it in a knit jersey fabric from Threadbare Fabrics that I bought in 2018. So it's been in my stash for quite a while. And I'm gonna do a full review of this. It's gonna go up on Monday. So if you wanna see the garment being worn and what I thought of the pattern, please subscribe to my channel and come back on Monday for a full review. The next thing that I finished was the Stellan tee by French Navy. This is a free pattern, and it comes, I can't remember what the sizing is, but I'll try to throw the sizing chart on the screen so you can see it. I made the smallest size, even though my measurements would have put me in the second smallest size, because the finished garment measurements are pretty big. It's meant to be a loose, boxy tee, and I just didn't want it to be too boxy, so I went down a size, and I'm glad that I did that. This is just your basic crew neck tee with a curved hem. I used this cotton spandex jersey from fabric.com, and the fit of this one on me isn't great. It kind of bunches under the arms a little bit more than I would like, and so I find myself always in search of the perfect t-shirt pattern, and I think I'm still looking. I don't think this one's quite the right one, but it's perfectly fine, and it's wearable, and it's a basic white tee, which I needed because I have an older ready-to-wear tee that's just worn out, and so I'm sure that I will get a lot of wear out of this, but it's just not my perfect t-shirt yet. One thing I will say about the pattern is that it's not really, the instructions aren't really set up to tell you if you're cover stitching, like when to cover stitch. And so they have this optional like binding for the back neck that covers the seam, and it looks very nice and clean. But what I wasn't thinking about is I should have cover stitched the neckline before I put the binding on, because you can't really cover stitch it after, or the stitching would show on this binding, and you want that part to be really neat and clean. So just like how the cover stitches like show on the inside. So if you are using a cover stitch, just remember to cover stitch the neckline and then do the neck binding. And just as an added touch, I also cover stitch the shoulder seams because I think that's a very like ready to wear look. But yeah, this is just a basic tee. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I don't have any modeled photos right now, but I'm sure that I'll take some for my monthly makes video at the end of the month. So you'll see this one again. So the next top that I finished, this was not in my plans from last week, but I decided to go ahead, since my machine was set up for sewing knits, to just squeeze out one more knit before I switch back to wovens. And so I made the Galaxy tee from Pattern Scissors Cloth. It's another free pattern, and I think it's been pretty popular lately. And again, I don't remember the sizes because they're centimeters and I can't remember what the sizes are, but I know that I made the second smallest size. And this time I think that was the appropriate size for me. Like it matched up to my measurements and it also fits correctly. So this is a basic crew neck t-shirt. It has more of a squared off hem. And then the feature of this one is that it has these puff sleeves with a cuff. Now I used a stripy rayon jersey that I got from Threadbare Fabrics in 2018. It was the same time that I bought the Friday Pattern Company jersey. And so this fabric is super, super soft and drapey, and the instructions for the Galaxy tee tell you to use a cotton jersey or something that's stiffer that's gonna hold the puff. But I didn't really want that. Like, I like the idea of puff sleeves, but I don't love it when they're super, super poofy. I just think it's not a good look for me. So I actually really like the way that this looks on. It's just, and how it's just softer and drapier. I really, really like this look. So the only thing with this t-shirt that I didn't like is that it's pretty long. Even though I'm very short, I have a fairly normal sized torso, and I very rarely need to shorten the bodice of dresses or shirts or anything. But for this one, I made it as the pattern indicated, and it comes down to, it all kind of covers my rear end. It's almost more like a tunic. Like it's sort of in between a tunic and a regular t-shirt. And for me personally, that's just a little bit too long. So if I were to make this again, and I probably would, I would shorten the pattern by 2 inches just to have it hit more at like the high hip level, which is where I'm more comfortable. But otherwise, this is like a nice relaxed fit crew neck tee with just this added detail of the sleeve. It's really cute on. I really like this top. So I just realized that once again, I forgot to mention in the beginning of the video what I'm wearing. I am wearing the Galena dress from Little Lizard King. It's a free pattern, it's been very popular. I made it in February out of this bamboo spandex jersey that I got from Emma One Sock, and I will insert a photo here so you can see what it looks like on. I love this dress. I feel really good every time I put it on. It's one of those dresses that when you put on a garment and you just feel like yourself and that you feel at home. That's how I feel in this dress. It has these really beautiful like bubbly sleeves, and kind of like what I was talking about with the Galaxy tee, I like that even though it is gathered a little bit here, the fabric is so drapey that it's not super exaggerated, and that's just the look that I prefer. So that's what I'm wearing today. So let's talk about next week's plans. So since I spent this week sewing all of those knit garments, I'm honestly a little bit done with knits for the time being. I'm ready to go back to wovens. So today I cut out the mallorymccalls M8180. This was part of their spring collection, and I am going to make view C, the one the model is wearing. And the fabric that I am using is, try to hold them up, it's this rayon dobby that I got from fabric.com and in black and white. And hopefully you can see the detail that there's just these little like sort of embroidered dots on it that gives it a little bit of texture. So for my version of the top, I'm going to be making, the shirt is mostly going to be white, but the collar and the ruffle is going to be black, and the cuffs are going to be black, and then I'm going to use black buttons just to give it that nice contrast. And so I have it cut out, and I got all my interfacing ironed on, so I'm ready to start sewing tomorrow. And this like bold statement collar is maybe a little bit too much for me. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it or not, but I do like to try new things, and sometimes I'm like pleasantly surprised and I find a new style that I really like. And if I don't like it, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I can just pass the shirt on to someone else who would like it better. So that's what I'm planning to sew next week. I also wanted to mention that this was part of my April sewing plans, but actually it fits in really nicely with the new challenge that's going on with Kristen from the Dahlia Society, and I think it's Gabrielle of Cloth Edit. They're doing a hashtag sew April blouse, and it's just in order to enter, you just have to sew a blouse in a woven fabric, and this, like I said, it fits in perfectly with their scheme, so I am going to plan to enter this top into the sew April blouse hashtag and just join along with everybody else. So if I finish the mallorymccalls next week and I still have extra time, I was thinking about trying out the new Tilly and the Buttons free pattern. It's for a detachable collar. So I had kind of been looking for ideas of how you can style these statement collars, just not really knowing how to wear them. And just a few like fashion videos that I was watched showed some of the detachable collars that you can buy in the store. And I think that they're actually really versatile because you can basically wear them over anything that has a crew neck. So like a basic t-shirt or a sweater, or even I've seen people do like t-shirt dresses to like have a little detachable collar, and it's a cute little easy addition to any outfit. And I also like the detachable collar idea because it's a great way to use up scraps. So my first thought was I would just make a basic one out of white, probably cotton or linen or something, and try it out, see if I like it. And if I do like it, then maybe I'll scrap bust and make a few others. I think they would even make a cute gift if you had the right kind of person who would appreciate that sort of gift. And I just really like the idea of trying to use up more of my scraps. So if I have time, I'll try to make one of those detachable collars and just see how it goes. So those are all of my sewing plans, but I did have kind of a question of the week for you guys. So as sewists, I know it's like self-imposed, but I feel like we have this pressure on ourselves to make everything. And I personally, there's just certain types of garments that I just have no interest in ever making myself. And one of them is lingerie. I know that bra making and underwear making is a huge thing in the sewing community, but just for me personally, I don't ever see myself doing that. It's just not something that I'm interested in. And so in a similar vein, I actually did buy some clothes and they came in the mail this week, so I thought I would just talk about it for a little bit. I bought a 4-pack of these knit camisoles from Amazon. It was like 4 in a pack for $25, and there was like a white one, a black one, and 2 nude ones. And so I bought these because I use them for 2 different purposes. One is if I ever have like a blouse that's a little bit sheer, I can just kind of layer it underneath for more coverage. Or if you wear like a wrap top or something where like a deep V, you know, you can just have that little bit of extra security that like your bra is not going to peek out. So that's why I wear it in the spring and summer. And then in the winter, I actually wear this kind of thing as a layering piece. So like as a base layer before I put on my shirt and my sweater and my coat and all that. It's just another extra layer of warmth. So it's a very useful garment, and the ones that I had were very, very old and just stretched out and ready to die. And so I went ahead and ordered some replacements. Now I know that this is an extremely simple tank, and I have actually made a tank very similar to this in the past, but I just don't enjoy making them. Like, they're boring. They're usually like solid colors, and for me, I wanted to have the different colors, like the white, the nude, and the black. So you'd have to be making multiples of the same pattern. These finishes, like I know there's different ways you can do it, but it's often like fold over elastic to finish off the neckline and the straps. And I don't really like working with that. It's kind of the whole, like, I don't like lingerie stuff. And yeah, it would be a huge chore for me to make something like this. So I was happy to just plunk down the $25 and buy it, and I don't have to think about it. So let me know in the comments if there are any garments like this, or just anything that you don't have any interest in ever making yourself. I would love to hear if I'm alone or if you feel the same way. So every week I want to highlight a YouTuber whose channel I really enjoy, to just give them a shout out. And so this week's shout out is going to Marty of fridaysews. I really like her channel because she's very funny, and she just has this enthusiasm that makes you want to enjoy your hobby the way that she does. I've just enjoyed every single one of her videos that she's made. She does a lot of interesting things that I don't ever sew. Like she's doing this series on swimwear, which swimwear is probably another one of those things that I wouldn't ever make myself because I just don't want to. But her enthusiasm about swimwear almost makes me want to make my own. She's also done a lot of activewear, and just every garment that she makes everything seem really fun. I don't know how she does it because I'm not that kind of person, but she is just really bubbly and seems very outgoing, and I just really enjoy watching her, as well as the actual sewing content. So if you haven't watched her channel, I would highly encourage you to check her out. I will put a link down in the description box to her channel, and that's Marty of fridaysews. So the last thing that I have for you this week is another podcast recommendation. I just want to say really quickly, I'm really sorry if all the podcasts that I'm recommending are Spotify exclusives. Spotify is how I listen to my podcasts, and I have a subscription, and so I just don't really think about whether or not they're on other platforms. I think that the one I recommended last week and the one I'm going to recommend today are both Spotify exclusives, so again, I apologize for that. But I'm still going to go ahead and recommend this one because it was really great. So the podcast that I have been listening to and I just finished, it's really wonderful, is called Welcome to Your Fantasy. And so it's technically a true crime, like long form true crime series, but I would say the crime part of it is almost secondary to why I enjoyed it so much. It's actually, it's from the 80s, like the early 80s, and it's about Chippendales. So if you're too young to have ever heard of Chippendales or you're just not familiar with them, Chippendales is like the male equivalent of Playboy bunnies. Like, it's male strippers, and they had their thing with like the bow ties and like they're shirtless. I don't know, it was just, when I was growing up, they were kind of a joke. Like, I remember the Saturday Night Live skit with Patrick Swayze where he was auditioning for Chippendales. That's kind of how I remember Chippendales. But anyway, the podcast is kind of about the rise and fall of the Chippendale Empire and like who started it, how it got started. And because it's set in the early 80s, like technically I was alive during that era, but like I was too young to really know anything about Chippendales. And so it was almost, the interest for me was sort of more about like the history of how this got started and how it became a phenomenon. And you kind of almost get immersed in what that time period was like. They talked to a lot of the former dancers, And there is also a murder, and that part is almost like icing on the cake, where it's just, I mean, it's part of the story, but there's just so much more in the story that I found fascinating. So if you're interested in knowing about the Chippendales Empire and how a murder is involved, I would highly recommend the podcast Welcome to Your Fantasy. So check it out. So I think that's everything that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. For everyone who is new to my channel, I hope that you will stick around. And for everybody who is a returning subscriber, thank you so much for watching my videos, and I will see you next week.